Okay, so a couple months ago, my friend Pokebro finally managed to coerce me into playing a Pokemon game. The only other time I had ever played a Pokemon game was back in 2022 when I played Heart Gold for about an hour and then gave up. Of all the Pokemon games we could have gone for, we decided to play Alpha Sapphire. I did one playthrough along with Pokebro and then another one without a fast forward option, so my Pokemon weren't all over leveled to hell and back. And now I want to discuss this game, so I hope you're willing to accompany me. This is Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. Now, I'm gonna talk about all the positive aspects first. For starters, I really like the open-ended feel that it provides. The Pokemon you decide to use in combat are entirely your choice, and I really dig that. It's also your choice whether or not you're over-leveled or not. Just in general, the way you play the game is just so customizable, even if progressing in the story is linear. It gives a lot of the feeling that Miitopia does in the sense that this is entirely your adventure and you decide who comes with you. Speaking of the characters, they're quite fun. May is genuinely such a sweet lady. Every time I had to battle her, she healed my team afterwards, so I actually felt bad for her at the end of the game when I was just one-shotting all of her Pokemon. I only ever really saw Wally as a petulant child that I had to take care of every now and then, so when I smoked his ass in Mauville, I didn't even feel bad. Mr. President Steven Stone is also pretty good. I really didn't care for anyone else. Third on my list would just be the general combat, because it's quite good. With a couple exceptions, which I'll definitely touch on later, it's more than enough to keep the game fun for most of its runtime, and it has quite a lot of strategy packed into it. I will, however, say that I do not know how to feel about the fact that your Pokemon can only learn up to 4 moves at once. I think it leads to a lot of moves that you just never end up using because you just don't want to get rid of an existing move to try it. Pretty much every time I actually learned a new move, it was because it was a more powerful version of something I already had. I think getting rid of this limit would open up the game to a lot more strategy options, because as is, there are a ton of moves that you just never end up using, but then again, I understand why they did it, because you could have 2 moves that are almost identical, and that would mean that you get to use said move a lot more. This isn't something that really affects the game, since as I said, most of the time you're just substituting a move with an objectively better version of it, but I don't know for sure. The music is also really good. Genuinely, this is an extremely solid soundtrack with a lot of really nice tracks. For example, Wally's battle theme, Steven's battle theme, Petalburg, and Mauville. On the other hand, I find the art style a bit weird. Everything has a weird sort of outline to it, and I can't really say that's my favorite stylistic choice, but it's something that I can easily gloss over. Finally, I like to compliment the gyms. A lot of them are really well designed. I also like how if you're smart, you can avoid most of the trainers in them. Here are some highlights. Flannery's gym with the rising water platforms. Norma's gym, as hard as it is, has a really cool concept of you getting to pick which type of trainer you want to fight. The final gym with the glass puzzle is another one that I struggle with, especially the first time, but I have to admit that it's a cool idea. The same goes for the Elite Four as a final challenge, actually. They're great. Alright, that's all the positives. Time for some negatives. The absolute biggest problem I have with this game is the lack of cohesion between areas. A lot of the time, there's not much given explanation as to why you need to go to a certain city or how to get there. If you're lucky, somebody will tell you the name of where you need to be. The rest is up to you. Good fucking luck. This makes the game feel pretty segmented, and I feel like a sort of Goombella would have solved a lot of my problems with this, because there are many times throughout the game where you're given the name of a location and nothing else. The rest is up to you. And there are also times where you need to go somewhere first to activate a cutscene, then somewhere you've previously been opens up without any indication that it would. Getting to Mount Chimney is the perfect example of this. There's the building with the Team Aqua people there, and you have to go somewhere to activate a cutscene, and then when you come back, the Aqua guys aren't there anymore. This isn't the only time the game pulls something like this, and it's prevalent enough to where it becomes one of the game's major flaws for me. The other major flaw, which I can also recognize as a skill issue, is the type chart. I could not remember some of these for the life of me, mostly the psychic ones. The amount of times I used the psychic move against a dark type is insane, because I couldn't drill it into my head that psychic doesn't work against dark. Same goes with ghost, by the way. I also couldn't get into my head that using a type against itself is almost always not very effective unless it's dragon or ghost. My ass kept thinking it's neutral because that's just what makes the most sense to me. What do you mean psychic against psychic is not very effective? That should be neutral. Most of these type advantages make sense and I could deduce them just by thinking, but stuff like the psychic counters I could not remember at all. Another one would be whether Pokemon that float are affected by ground moves such as Earthquake. This is entirely dependent on whether that Pokemon has the move Levitate, which I think is really stupid, since I can't know ahead of time if it has that move or not. I think that if it floats, then ground moves shouldn't work on it. Simple as that. This might just be a skill issue, but it did cause a lot of extremely annoying moments. And now for my final critique, and this one's way lighter than the previous two and only really affects one portion of the game. Why is Victory Road so unfun? It's just 5,000 trainers to the point where you have to backtrack to the Pokemon Center in Evergrande to heal, not to mention all the random encounters that only waste your time and do nothing else. That's really about it for the negatives though. This game doesn't have that many small problems as much as it has a few big ones. And that's really about it. Let's wrap this up. That's really all I wanted to discuss with Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. Overall, I enjoyed my time with the game. It's not a perfect game, not by a long shot, but it's definitely a good one, and I had fun with it. This was my team in case you were curious, by the way. If I had to give it a score, I'd say 8 out of 10 would make the most sense. That's a pretty good impression for the rest of the series, and just in general as a fun RPG. Anyway, that's all. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.